You're listening to the Slavic Literature Pod, your shelf help guide to all things Slavic.
I'm Matt Gerasimovich, PhD candidate at Northwestern University, studying Russian literature and film.
And I'm Cameron Lalana, a literature enthusiast and a guy working in media.
And this is a podcast for people who want to learn more about Slavic culture. Every episode will bring you the background and analysis you'll need to know to understand these works.
And if you're interested in supporting us, you can head on over to our website, slaviclitpod.com. All right, Matt, that's enough of our intro. I know it's only been like 20 seconds, but hey, we're trying to be faster. What are we covering this week?
This week, we're not actually covering a specific work, but we are going over a sort of FAQ, Q&A type style episode to introduce our podcast post-rebrand.
FAQ, Q&A, QAnon, let's get into it.
What does the Q mean, Cameron?
First question, Mr. Trump. Why are we changing the podcast itself?
Yes and no. Yes, but also no. So some things are changing, but I would say nothing major in terms of the show structure or anything like that. We are changing some parts of our format, a little bit of our purview, and we're going to be covering more mediums than just literature now. However, we are still going to be covering mostly literature. The basic idea is the same. You don't need to know anything before you come in and listen to one of our podcast episodes. And again, if all goes according to plan, you should walk away from our episodes knowing more than you did coming in. And I realize that might not be a high bar, but it is a bar I would like to achieve.
Right, yeah. And if you listen to our Going Into June episode, you'll already know that part of what we're trying to do here is to broaden our purview beyond just Russian literature to cover Slavic works as a whole, not just Slavic books, but also like Slavic, movies and such. So it's still within the ballpark of what we were doing before, just, a bit more inclusive. But Matt, people might be listening to us right now and thinking, okay, sure, but why are you doing this now? You're almost 3 years in. What's the hurry to change at this point?
Well, it's not really that much of a change from where I'm sitting, because what we're doing is kind of changing the way that we face the world so that it really matches what it is we're doing in the show. The nature of the podcast is not changing, but we wanted to give us some room to actually let it grow. So after these 3 years, we've been kind of, trying to figure out what works for us and what doesn't. And we've done some things like trying to figure out a good balance for, long series and short works. Like I said, trying to cover more mediums. We've been wanting to expand just slightly into film, since that's now my kind of specialization. And I think I've got an interesting viewpoint on it. Maybe you'll disagree. We'll see. Let's find out. And again, we wanted to cover more areas because we've been doing kind of mostly just Russia, but there's just a lot of other authors that we want to talk about to kind of, better conceptualize the entirety of this region.
Mm-hmm. Which has always been a goal of ours, but it's not something we've never really put the time into address until now. We thought, now that we're taking the time to redo some things with the podcast, we may as well as get to some of those backlogs that we've always wanted to for, authors outside of Russia itself, which has always been a goal of ours.
Well, it's kind of a silly reason not to, but because of the fact that we for so long had been using that sort of subtitle Russian literature for the inebriated, I didn't want to imply that everyone we were covering was Russian.
Right. Yeah.
Which it was just kind of a silly linguistic thing, but it does have some real implications. And I did not want to commit this sort of linguistic faux pas on our podcast. And so now that we're kind of again, redoing our brand to reflect what we want to be doing, I think it's going to work out really well and hopefully be really interesting.
Yeah, RIP our SEO. But another thing is that, as Matt has mentioned, finding that balance for larger works. And if you listen to our Going Into June episode, you'll already know. But just to recap, we want to keep covering larger works, but what we've realized is just blocking out 4 to 6 months for a big book is kind of just alienating a lot of people who don't necessarily want to hear that book for 4 to 6 months. So at this point, we're more comfortable about doing what we had actually originally intended for these longer series. If you were around for our Anna Karenina series, or you've seen that, you may have seen, we started doing Anna Karenina, then another, non-related work, then go back to Anna Karenina. And we decided that didn't really work at the time, but we think we want to go back to it because, hey, not everyone's interested in whatever longer series we're reading, and we want to make sure that we're including everyone in both being able to understand the longer series that we're getting into, which we do want to keep getting into, but also are not being, blocked out from interesting content for months at a time. So, once a month, you'll still be getting our longer read. We're still engaging in that. But also the rest of the month, you're going to be hearing from whatever else we're getting into, be that movies, be that a bonus episode, which we'll talk about later, be that a shorter book, be that, it's a book in its own right. We're still covering our normal stuff to balance out these two things, which we think is a nice balance between the two.
Yeah, the problem with the way we were doing Anna Karenina was really only that we were releasing episodes every week. And I think we took the wrong lesson from it, which is that we were just doing too much. It's not like what we were doing. It was just too much of it at the time for us.
Yeah.
And now it's actually going to let us do the research needed and the prep needed to make these long series really worthwhile for everybody listening. And, part of this, break and this rebrand was this listener survey that we sent out across social media. And one of the things that we had taken from this was that people actually want more guest episodes, which we understood for a long time, I think, inherently, but they take a lot of time and effort to plan and to execute. And by switching up our just scheduling, it's really not our format, it's really just our scheduling. This is going to allow us to actually give you what you want, what you really, really want, and it's going to make the show, I think, just more enjoyable all around.
You'll get more of what you want, which is apparently less of us.
Which is less of us. And yeah, I took that hard, but it's all right.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, now we're still been drinking on the podcast, but that'll be more in the background to deal with the fact that everyone wants to hear more of our guests than they do want to us. Matt, we kind of covered around this, but hey, let's address it directly. Are we changing our release schedule?
No, release schedule is going to be the same. First 3 Fridays of every month for now. I know we've discussed, and boy, we would love to go to weekly, but it just really is not something that we're able to take up right now.
No. If you and your, 30 best friends are able to fund us to the degree that allow us to not work full-time jobs, we would love to go back up to full-time 4 times a month. But until then, we still have to pay our rent and mortgages. We still have jobs to do and lives to go through. So 3 Fridays a month for now.
Yeah, I think especially as we're trying to put in a lot more research into our episodes, it's just not like, I don't think what we're trying to do is produce more content. I think what we're trying to do now is produce better content. And that's why kind of tangentially, you'll probably have noticed, like, we've stopped doing our video podcast. We have kind of stopped trying to repurpose our short form content across social media, because we're really just trying to focus on the quality of the audio and the main product that we do. We want to make as good as possible, and I think we have a lot of room to improve. And thank you to everyone that filled out our listener survey. It was helpful, but you did mostly confirm what we were trying to do, so that was nice.
Thank you for telling us exactly what we wanted to hear.
Yes.
And speaking of things we want to hear, hey, isn't our new podcast art nice?
It's so nice. It's so nice.
It's good. We are sad to see our old podcast art go. And hey, by the way, check out our show notes to go check out Carolyn Marie Reads, also known as Carolyn Castagnana. I assume that's how you say her name. Sorry if you've Americanized it. Who did our old podcast art, which was amazing, and I love it. And before we took down our merch, I did order several things with that art on it. I still love it, but it's not our name anymore. So we went to a new artist who was also very good and has been a delight to work with to create this new art.
Yes, we've been working with Shae McMullin, who has been just fantastic throughout this whole process, really enthusiastic to work with us on our concepts, and just great. Really been just a fun time. I look forward to every week when I get my new edits, or I get my new my new drafts and everything. It was fun. And I love that it captures the essence of what I had in my head, which was just, how do you make something look kind of vaguely Slavic?
Right.
Without like necessarily implicating any certain country or, anything like too specific, but to still let people know like this is what it is. It's such a difficult challenge, and I'm really grateful for all the work that Shae put in.
Right. That was a big one for us. How do you talk about a place, a broad place, not a specific group, not a specific place, not a specific country, also not a specific time, and then how do you convey that in art? And then we put that to Shae, and Shae was like, all right, I got it.
I would like to convey nothing and everything all at once.
Right. So very big props to Shae for that. Speaking of relatedly, I'm going to split these two topics here. We got a new website. It's going to be up at SlavicLitPod.com, but also if you go to TipsyTolstoy.com, that will redirect. You'll still end up at our new website. It looks beautiful. Matt's done a wonderful job redesigning that.
I love how much faith you're putting in me at this point when we're recording, when the website's not done. It's real fun.
Well, it's half faith, half, deadline for when this podcast comes out. The website has to be up. But also on there, speaking of our art, if you liked our art in the past, if you go to our About Us page, you'll also find a history, which this podcast has been around for long enough for us to write a history, which is wild. Yeah. But also, we love all of our art. We've had such a good time. Every artist we've ever worked with has been just such a delight. All of them have done such a wonderful job, and we didn't want to let that fall by the wayside. So if you want to see it, go to our website, go to our history page on our About Us page, and you'll be able to see not only the art, but also the progression of what it looked like through the process, which it was a delight to go back and be able to pull back up and collect.
Yeah, not just the finalized art again, but the process that you showed of the different drafts and everything. It's really fun to remember what it was like to be, trying to extract this vision and get it on paper. It's so difficult, but it is fun. Mm-hmm. It's probably less fun for the artists that have to work, trying with this like sort of just general guidance. But for me, it's fun. I love just seeing what people come up with,
Yeah, I like to hope that we're not the nightmare clients. I like to think that we have enough of an idea.
I don't think we are. Right. I was doing some gossiping, and there are some people that really give, let's just say, like a lot of artistic leeway with what you can do. Right.
Yeah. And speaking of our website, also, if you go to our website, you may notice that there is a tier system on that. We are also switching from Patreon to our website as our primary place to put stuff up. So the reasoning behind that is because it's a system that works better for us. We also want to integrate the ability to put out more content. We've always had a lot of stuff we've been wanting to do on our Patreon, but just as a result of the fact that we've got busy lives and so many mediums to keep up with, have not always been able to keep up with. So we're trying to consolidate down into a format which is more doable for us. So if you are interested in supporting the podcast, you still can do so with your money. Just it'll be on the podcast now. Going forward, our Patreon will not allow new signups. And if you're a current patron, you should switch over to our new website. You can still stay on Patreon. We're just going to be not updating that in the future, and you'll see that same information on Patreon to switch over, just to make it easier for everyone involved, and also more content, more achievability in terms of what we're putting out.
Yeah, the website rocks, honestly. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look good as of the time of recording this, but I bet it's going to look really good by the time everybody else sees it.
I think it looks good. I think the bones you built so far looks amazing, and I look forward to what it will be by the time this podcast comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be good, and we're excited to not be on Patreon. We've been looking for a way out for a while, but there just isn't really a lot of alternative solutions, but there has been more and more kind of popping up and more being kind of developed as a response to the fact that Patreon is not a great platform to be on as a creator. They do not listen. They take lots of money. It is not a fun time to be on Patreon.
Right. Yeah.
I just got beef with Patreon, really. John J. Patreon himself. I can't stand him.
Mr. John Patreon, please stop making us pay taxes twice over.
John J. Patreon.
So, gosh, any other changes we want to talk about?
Yeah, we got a few sort of minor changes, but kind of fun ones. On trying to engage with our audience a little bit more, trying to encourage more listener questions. just in our Discord. I have already been sort of doing this, and we've already collected a lot of great questions for the episodes that are coming out soon, but I am trying my best to solicit questions from patrons and audience members alike, just on some of the upcoming content that we've got. So check the show notes for a link to our Discord that you can join and, join that conversation. But we also have created a voicemail that you can call. You can call us at 209-800-3944 and leave us a voicemail. We will do our best, if it is a good question, to play it on either the podcast or our bonus episode, depending on what it's about. Please include the full context of what it is you're talking about so we can fully answer your question. And just be aware that if you call this number and leave a voicemail, we are taking that as your permission to be able to put this on the podcast. So please don't say anything that you would not want your mom, dad, or the wolves who raised you to hear.
Right. And one more time, that's 209-800-3944. Please, again, include the full context. Sometimes we get questions and we are truly like, and it's a good question, but it's like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We've recorded.
Quite frankly, that means it's not a good question.
Well, yeah, I think they can be
Cameron's
true.
Nice. It's not. You get an F.
We have recorded so many podcasts, we don't always remember what we're talking about. It's been so long. So, please don't, ask us of, whatever, like the color Bazarov's underwear back in, Turgenev's episodes back in 2021. What do you think that implicates for the meaning of the nihilist movement going forward? Please, full context. But yeah, 209-800-3944. We're
also kind of redoing our bonus episode format, which is where we were hoping to include most of these questions in. So if you're not asking a question about an episode that's coming up, that's like kind of available for you to see it on our website on our reading list. I would expect to potentially hear it played on our new bonus episode format, which is going to be called Office Hours. Yeah, that's a funny little thing. Office Hours. No one ever comes to my office hours at the university, so I'm going to be doing virtual office hours to hold everybody hostage, where, we're just going to be doing some fun stuff. It's going to be good. And It'll hopefully allow us to kind of revisit some of these older episodes.
We're calling it office hours as a fun little Easter egg to the fact that more people listen to this podcast than attend Matt's classes. So
yes, sir. Although that's actually more of an accomplishment than a neg.
Right.
Based on the fact that we do actually carry quite a lot of listeners.
Yes, that's true.
Our listener base is bigger than any probably literature class you would attend at a university.
That when I was going to Slavic Lit classes at Davis, I had 5 people. So in my classes, not a big achievement, but a big achievement at your university where people are actually in this degree.
I think our biggest at the moment is 200 to 300.
Yeah.
I think our biggest ever was 800, so the lore says, which is kind of incomprehensible.
That sounds about right from a UC perspective, but I understand that you're at a university where you expect to be treated like a person.
Yes.
And then unless there's any other major things you want to talk about, hey, you already noticed this, but we have some new music and it kicks ass.
It really does.
Not to rip on Toasted Tomatoes, because Toasted Tomatoes also kicks ass. And we've had a chance to say goodbye in our previous last episode, but we're doing a new brand, we're doing new stuff. It's time to do some new music, and love Toasted Tomatoes. Will still be listening to it myself quite a bit. But hey, it's time for some new stuff. And this new band, Permotka, and this new song, which is called Staroya Kino, meaning old film by Permotka, spelling in the show notes, is a wonderful song. And you can find them on Bandcamp and Spotify and many other places too.
Yeah, they were also similarly wonderful to work with, and you should definitely pick up that album, because honestly, like Cameron said, that album rips. It's good. It's
a good album. And we said, like, hey, how much do you want for this? And they said, just take it for free. And we said, please accept our money. So they're also very nice. I guess I can't speak for the whole band, but at least the band member we're talking to was very, very pleasant and nice about it.
Yes. So give them some support. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And If you're looking for other places to find us, you can also follow us, as always, on social media at Slavic Lit Pod, which was still the same account as our old Tipsy Tolstoy, just under a new handle. And you can also join our mailing list for free on slaviclitpod.com. And because of the new integrations, we'll actually be using that going forward. So, hey, now there's actually a reason to do so. And, hey, I got a little bit to the closing script, but Matt, this is a really important question. What are we covering next week?
Okay, I have to start with some context because it plays into the whole mythos of the Slavic Literature Pod.
Please.
Which is, we had a patron who said, I really like when you cover women authors because nobody ever talks about Russian women authors, especially from the 19th century. So we got one from next week. She's not going to be here talking with us, but we're going to be here talking about her.
We did not reanimate someone from the 19th century to come back.
But okay, maybe with enough money, we could harness that power on this podcast.
Right.
Right. So she was actually, in her time, the third highest earning author in the Russian Empire.
Third highest earning behind Tolstoy and Turgenev. That's wild. Yes. Why don't we talk about her? What's her name, Matt?
Yes. Why don't we talk about her? We're going to talk about her.
Well, what's her name? What's her name that's very hard to spell in the Latin alphabet?
So, yes, it is really funny because it makes more sense in Cyrillic. But yes, we're going to be reading, it's called On the Way, a sketch by Nadezhda Khvoshchinskaya. And there's going to be a lot of letters crammed together in that name. But, hey, what are you going to do? It's good. I made boy, do I have a lot of notes for this episode because that's what I'm trying to do better at as my job as co-host. And I've compiled them all in the episode notes that actually go incredibly hard. And you can get those episode notes for as little as $3 a month on our website, slaviclitpod.com. You'll have access to all of our old ones, which are also good, but they're not as good as the ones that are going to be coming. That's part of this whole thing is, better researched, better synthesized. I've included my sourcing for everything that I'm going to be talking about. So if anything sounds interesting, you'll be able to see exactly where I'm pulling from. And hopefully that is valuable to you all as listeners. A lot of you said that you wanted more analysis. And this is one way that I'm trying to, let our community have that. So that was a lot, but yeah, it's going to be good.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, but how can they support us, Matt? How can they keep the show running and independent?
Well, to keep this show, don't you take my script? What were you, raised by wolves?
This is my, after 3 years of broadcasting on not only here but in a couple more years in radio. My trick for how do I bridge to the next section is just stealing part of the next script line.
To help keep the show running and independent, head to our website, slaviclitpod.com. Like I said, you're going to be able to get access to our episode notes. There's just there's so many good things. We did so much work on the tiers. They're really fun. We hope you enjoy them. Take a look. Again, our website, slaviclitpod.com. And before we let you go, we wanted to extend a sincere thank you to all of our current supporters. Sorry, I keep wanting to say patrons.
Every time you say patrons, if you give us an extra $3, I will install a little shock ring on Matt. But again, like I mentioned earlier, the music in this episode, Staroya Kino by Peremotka. Find it on Bandcamp. It's in our show notes. And if you're looking for other places to find us, you can also follow us on social media at Slavic Lit Pod or join our mailing list on our website for free at slaviclitpod.com.
You'll hear from us again soon.